I was a normal kid growing up. I played baseball, loved video games, had a good family, and was awkward in junior high. High school, things seemed to click. We transferred to a new school that was about 5,500 students, and I made friends really quickly, played football, and everything seemed to just work out. I don't know exactly when it was in high school, but somewhere midway through, a black cloud of sadness just seemed to settle on my head. And I would go to school, I'd act normal, I'd make people laugh and seem like everything was okay, and go home and battle with my brain with depression. And I didn't know why it started. I couldn't explain it. There wasn't a bad breakup. I didn't lose my friends. I just felt horrible. At 18, after a lot of prompting from my mom, I finally went to a doctor for it. And I will never forget when he came in and said that I was type 2 bipolar. My first thought was, how embarrassing. I knew one person growing up that had a mental illness, and I remembered the whispers in the neighborhood. I didn't want to be equated with that. My doctor assured me it was just like any other disease and it could be treated with medication and I would be normal again, but I didn't know what normal would feel like or what normal was. I felt alone. In fact, outside of that one person I knew as a kid, I didn't know anyone that was dealing with it. I was by myself. If I'm honest, even as I got older, it remained a struggle. Mentally just trying to get over God calling me into being a pastor, but feeling depressed, knowing that with Jesus there should be joy, but not feeling any of it, made me question my calling. I felt like a terrible Jesus follower, a terrible Christian, and there was no way I could ever lead a community of believers. I wish I could say that it was just fixed right away, but it took several therapists and several medication combinations before we found what worked. But it worked, and it did help, and I was glad I went through that. My defining moment was a few years ago when I actually opened up and shared it with someone. And it was through that process that I began to share it with others, and I began to discover I'm not alone in this. I'm not the only one. In fact, many people that I thought were normal and had their lives together were going through very similar things. They battled depression. I met some friends that were bipolar, and I wasn't by myself. So if you are here and are hurting or battling depression or ADD, have anxiety, or any of the other countless mental illnesses, I want you to know you're not alone. God loves you and has a plan for you. In fact, Paul writes that in our weakness, God's strength is shown, and I'm here today because God's strength is able to show through me. I'm thankful for the doctors that are able to diagnose, for the medicines that are able to treat, and for being a part of a church that doesn't see the mental illness, but sees the person God created behind it. There are more of us than you would think, but you have to be willing to open up and talk about it. You have to share it with a leader, your pastor, someone that can care and walk you through it. Don't think you have to do this alone. Ecclesiastes 4:12 says that although one may be overcome, two can fight together, and a cord of 3 strands is not easily broken. Victory begins when we start being willing to open up and to share what we're going through with others. When we stop letting ourselves be defined by what others may think and feel, and start allowing ourselves to be defined by how our God looks and feels about us. He's a God that loves us and created us, that has our name carved on the palm of his hand and knit us together in our mother's womb. A God that has gifted us with a loving community that wants nothing more than to walk through this journey with us.